Good evening and welcome to the April 3rd, 2023 regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council. As you can see, we have sort of an abridged version of our City Council tonight. We don't have council members Harris or McNulty, but we're going to make the best of it. First item on our agenda tonight is the Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to invite Shareed, Syed, and Noor Mahmood to come lead us in the pledge tonight. If everyone can please rise.
I pledge to the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. Very, very well done. Next on our agenda is reflection. I would like to call for a moment of silence, please. Thank you all very much. Next on our agenda is the approval of minutes. Tonight we have two sets of minutes before us to approve. The first one is from the regular session on Monday, March 20th. What is the pleasure of the council?
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries unanimously, 3-0. Next, we have the minutes from the work session on Monday, March 27. What is the pleasure of the council?
Move for approval.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries unanimously. Next, we have presentations. We have a few proclamations tonight. The first one, I'd like to invite Councilmember Spiegel to. No, the first one's the Arts Barn's anniversary. Then we'll get the days of remembrance. Okay, so I'd like to invite Linda Bloom, current director of the Arts Barn, Denise Kaiser, founding director of the Arts Barn, Andy Rosati, former director of the Arts Barn, and Shelley Williams, former director of the Arts Barn. This is historic. Okay. Thank you very much. So, in recognition of 20 years of leading and supporting the arts and cultural environment of the city of Gaithersburg, April 15th, 2023 will be named Arts Barn Day, and I'm going to read the proclamation, and then you're going to hear about some events we have coming up. Proclamation of the Mayor and City Council of Gaithersburg, whereas the Arts Barn, a visual and performing arts center, opened to the public on May 27th, 2002, as part of the city's arts and cultural offerings. And whereas the city of Gaithersburg acknowledges that the Arts Barn is celebrating 20 years of dynamic programming that has contributed to the cultural environment of the city with professional and community arts programs that serve people of all ages, backgrounds, and abilities. And whereas the city will celebrate this special observance with an arts festival that reflects the rich programming and great influences that the Arts Barn has had on the people and visitors to the city of Gaithersburg. Now, therefore, I, Judd Ashman, by the power vested in me as Mayor of Gaithersburg, do hereby proclaim April 15th, 2023 as Arts Barn Day in the city of Gaithersburg and urge all residents to participate in this observance, thereby fostering the celebration of diversity and keeping strong the rich cultural foundation of our community. Proclaim this third day of April 2023 and signed by me. Let's give them a round of applause. Okay, I want to invite Linda Bloom and whoever else would like to speak about what's coming up at the Arts Barn, please.
Thank you. On behalf of all of us, we would like to invite the entire community to come on Saturday, April the 15th, to celebrate the Arts Barn's 20th anniversary with a wonderful free arts festival. It'll be held on the Kentlands Green. We have a vast, wonderful array of performing artists that will be available for you to see. We have arts education activities for the entire family, an artisan market, and incredible food trucks. So again, we invite you to come and celebrate with us, celebrate the Arts Barn's 20th anniversary on Saturday, April the 15th on the Kentlands Green, and we look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you.
I will note that April 15th used to be known as Tax Day. We are taking that day back. It is now Arts Barn Day. Ryan, if you would please join me up here. And I'm going to have Ryan read the background material for our Days of Remembrance proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Days of Remembrance is an annual 8-day period designated by the U.S. Congress to help citizens remember and draw lessons from the Holocaust. The period normally begins on the Sunday before the Jewish observance of Yom HaShoah, which is the Hebrew name for the Holocaust Remembrance Day, and continues through the following Sunday. A national civic commemoration is held in Washington, D.C., with state, city, and local ceremonies and programs held in most of the 50 states as well. The United States Holocaust Memorial Museum was created as a permanent living memorial to the victims and provides materials to help support remembrance efforts.
Proclamation of the Mayor and City Council of Gaithersburg, whereas the Holocaust was the state-sponsored, systematic persecution and annihilation of European Jewry by Nazi Germany and its collaborators between 1933 and 1945, during which 6 million people were murdered. And whereas the United States Congress established this international recognition of the Days of Remembrance, which corresponds to the 27th day of Nisan of the Hebrew calendar and marks the anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, and the Holocaust Remembrance Day on Tuesday, April 18th, known as Yom HaShoah. And whereas the history of the Holocaust offers an opportunity to reflect on the moral responsibilities of individuals, societies, and governments to rededicate ourselves to the principles of individual freedom in a just society. And whereas the Days of Remembrance have been set aside for all people to remember the victims of the Holocaust, as well as to reflect on the need for respect of all people. Now, therefore, I, Judd Ashman, by the power vested in me as Mayor of Gaithersburg, do hereby proclaim the week of Sunday, April 16 through Sunday, April 23rd, 2023 as Days of Remembrance in memory of the victims of the Holocaust and in honor of the survivors, rescuers, and liberators, and further proclaim that we as residents of the city of Gaithersburg must work to promote human dignity and confront hate whenever and wherever it occurs. Proclaim this third day of April 2023, signed by me, and I want to thank Ryan for accepting this proclamation. Okay. Next, I want to invite Jeanette to join me here from our Environmental Affairs Committee. And I'm going to have Jeanette read the background material, and then I will read the proclamation. Oh, we don't? We do. Okay. Not the long one.
As part of the annual Green Month celebration, the City of Gaithersburg is excited to recommit to sustainable practices that balance the needs of people, planet, and posterity. Our celebration kicked off with a trail mapping and cleanup event at Malcolm King Park on Saturday, a celebration of the city's 13 environmental award winners. You can be inspired by their great work as we spotlight our winners on our social media at GBurgMD all month long. We'll continue our celebration with the kickoff of the next Capital Area Solar Co-op, a challenge to reduce your carbon footprint at the Community Museum, a special meeting of the Environmental Affairs Committee to discuss the status of the Environmental Justice Survey, the announcement of our Storm Drain Art Contest winners, a screening of the film Trashy at the Arts Barn, and supporting numerous community cleanup events through the city. Is there more? There is
Yes.
more. Our work does not stop, as our proclamation does not stop, at just 1 month or 1 page. We have some other exciting events to look forward to also. Join us on May 6th for our spring free community shredding and e-waste recycling event. Join us on June 3rd for our second Fix It Fair, where volunteers will repair small appliances, textiles, jewelry, and more to keep them out of landfills and keep money in your pocket. For more information on these events and to stay connected and informed about future events, check out the city's website and subscribe to the Green in Gaithersburg e-newsletter.
All right, so proclamation of the Mayor and City Council designating April 2023 as Green Month and April 25th, 2023 as Arbor Day in the City of Gaithersburg to encourage all individuals, businesses, and communities to support efforts to plant trees, protect the natural environment, and make our homes and city more green. Proclaim this third day of April 2023 and signed by me. Thank you, Jeanette. Appreciate it. Okay. Next, we have Arab American Heritage Month. I'd like to invite Dr. Shaza M. Ahmed, who will be receiving the proclamation, and Dorothy Winder, and anybody from the Multicultural Affairs Committee that would like to join us up here. Please do. Good. Yeah, please, come on. Come join us. Whoever would like to be in the picture should come on up here. Come on up here. Okay. Welcome. Okay, April is dedicated to Arab American Heritage Month, recognizing people with ancestry from a wide range of Arabic-speaking countries and regions in the Middle East and parts of Northern Africa. The United States is home to over 3.5 million Arab Americans who trace their ancestry to 22 countries, stretching from North Africa in the west to the Arabian Gulf in the east. Arabs are ethnically, religiously, and politically diverse, but descend from a common linguistic and cultural heritage. The number of Marylanders who claim an Arab ancestry has more than doubled since the census first measured ethnic origins in 1980, and is among the fastest growing Arab populations in the country. The largest number of new Arab immigrants to Maryland came from Iraq, Egypt, and Morocco. During the month of April, the City of Gaithersburg's Multicultural Affairs Committee will celebrate the rich history, cultural influences, and cultural heritage of Arab Americans with an educational display. The educational art display will be available for viewing at the Activity Center from April 2nd through April 28th, and I already saw it this weekend. Dr. Shaza Ahmed was born in Sudan and immigrated to the United States in 2004 through the lottery system. Dr. Ahmed lives in the greater Gaithersburg area with her husband and 4 children and is a paraeducator working with children with special needs in Montgomery County Public Schools. Having a child with autism motivated Dr. Ahmed to be more involved and become an advocate for her students and all the other students who learn differently, as well as their parents. Dr. Ahmed is actively involved in her children's school PTAs, volunteers as an administrator for a weekend school. During the pandemic, Dr. Ahmed volunteered with food distribution and delivering. She manages weekly educational sessions for parents on bullying, safety, understanding the system, and what resources are available to them, and shares her knowledge of how to be an advocate for their children and themselves. With the giving of time and caring, Dr. Ahmed contributes to making Gaithersburg the best city in the world. And with that, I will read this proclamation of the Mayor and City Council, whereas since the 1880s, Arab Americans have constituted an ethnicity made up of several waves of immigrants from the Arabic-speaking countries of Southwestern Asia and North Africa. And whereas Arab American heritage reflects a culture with a strong commitment to family, economics, and educational achievements. And whereas Arab Americans have contributed greatly to the success of our nation in the areas of commerce, business, politics, education, medicine, and the arts. And whereas Montgomery County is the home to a thriving Arab American community whose valued presence has added to the rich cultural mosaic of our community, now therefore I, Judd Ashman, by the power vested in me as Mayor of Gaithersburg, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2023 as Arab American Heritage Month in the city of Gaithersburg. Proclaim this third day of April 2023, signed by me, and let's give Dr. Ahmed a great round of applause. Would you like to say a few words, or?
Sure.
All of you.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'll let you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and Ramadan Mubarak for the one that who's fasting. I would like to thank the City of Gaithersburg Mayor and the Council, and extend my thanks to the Cultural Affairs Committee for this opportunity. As a parent of a child with autism, April is like, the month of awareness of autism all over the world. So I'm so happy that April, become some, having memories in my mind. And I am so happy to be one of the people who, serve the community of Gaithersburg, being one of the citizens. Thank you so much and have a good night.
Okay, next item on our agenda is a courtesy review, and we have Caroline Seiden from our planning department to lead us.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Staff is before you tonight to present a courtesy review for application ASDP 9525-2023 and seeks guidance on how to proceed with this application. The site is 700 Professional Drive, which is shown here outlined in blue, just east of 270, north of Watkins Mill Road, and west of the Spectrum development. It was the original, or previously the Humane Society of the United States. The subject property is approximately 8.9 acres with an existing two-story office building. The property was initially developed under the I-3 Industrial Office Park Zone, but was comprehensively rezoned to MXD, mixed-use development, in 1997 as part of Comprehensive Map Amendment Application Z-285. Subsequent to the rezoning, the site received two sketch plan approvals, Z-306 in 2007 and then Z-3136-2013 in 2013. Because the current application proposes no changes to the site, the most recent site plan, S657A, will serve as the existing schematic development plan to be amended. And specifically for this application, the applicant wishes to modify the existing office building to accommodate a new use on the first floor, adult medical daycare, while maintaining the office use on the second floor. Both uses are listed as permitted in the current sketch plan. This application comes before you pursuant to Section 24198C of the City Code, which states that staff shall present the application to council as a courtesy review for amendments to an SDP involving a change of use. Following the courtesy review, the council shall either deem that the application has a minor effect and direct the Planning Commission to make a final decision, or the council may direct that the amendment be referred to the Planning Commission for further evaluation, public hearing, and recommendation, and the council shall thereafter approve or disapprove the recommendation of the Planning Commission. The current site plan has a new parking chart that is included on the cover page. It's just highlighted here to show that will continue to be a surplus of parking spaces. And in this case, since the applicant is requesting only a change in use with no physical changes to the property, staff recommends that the council finds the application to have a minor effect and direct the planning commission to make a final decision on the amendment. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Caroline. Any questions or comments from the council? From my perspective, it seems like this is easily fitting into that minor effect option. Someone want to make a motion?
I agree, Mr. Mayor. I will make the motion that we, as a council, deem that the application is a minor effect and that we direct the planning commission to make a final decision.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next on our agenda, we have public comments. This is the time the mayor and council sets aside for anyone to come before us to speak on any topic that's not a public hearing topic. And tonight we do have a public hearing, and let me just, it's on our budget. So if you are here tonight to speak on our budget, just wait. We're going to get to that item in a sec or in a couple minutes. But I also want to remind the public that the record on the Lake Forest application is closed at 5 p.m. on March 10th. So any comments offered tonight will not be on the record for Lake Forest or considered during the council's policy discussion 2 weeks from now on April 17th. So if anybody would like to speak, we ask that you state your name and address or neighborhood if you prefer for the record. Keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. If you have more than 3 minutes worth of material, by all means, use your 3 minutes and just send us the rest via email. It'll be considered just the same. Do we have anybody here who'd like to speak this evening? Looking around, not seeing anybody jumping up. Okay. Let me check on Zoom and see if we have anybody there. I don't see anybody in the room on Zoom. Okay. Well then, we appreciate it. We'll move on to our next agenda item, which is our public hearing on the budget. And let me just pull up that cover sheet. Okay. We have Tanisha, our city manager, and Nate Bassett, who is our budget manager from our finance department, here as well.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight, I'm pleased to present a brief summary as part of the public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 2024 budget. The purpose of tonight's overview is to provide some general context for the proposed budget as all of you, along with the community, review the budget in detail and formulate your feedback and/or questions for next week's budget workshop. We will go into more detail next week on each item that I'll present. And the proposed budget was published on the city's website last Friday. With me this evening is budget manager Nathan Bassett. Nate will assist with tonight's brief overview as we are both here along with finance director Janice Hartman to address any questions you may have. And also I'd like you to keep in mind any questions that we might be able to answer for you next week. And remember that we only have 7 days from tonight to address those questions. All right, so again, we'll start with a quick review of the city's budget process. We will then take a look at the changes that were made to the budget since it was introduced last month, along with a high-level synopsis of the revenues and expenses, capital improvements plan, and the stormwater fund. We'll then wrap up with an overview of next steps. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to ask, or you can wait until the end and we can address them then. Now I will turn the presentation over to Nate.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to discuss the FY24 budget process, which contained no major changes or updates relative to the FY23 budget process. The budget kickoff was held at the end of August, marking the opening of the FY24 budget season, with departmental budget preparation and work on the capital improvement plan. Departments were provided a base budget at the time the budget kicked off, and the budget software was open for entry in mid-September. The initial deadline for base budget adjustments occurred in mid-October, with finance staff seeing a high level of requests related to the inflationary pressures of the current economic environment. Requests continued to be received after the initial deadline as new information was provided by two departments by their vendors. CIP deadlines fell in October for active and planned projects and November for new projects. Operating changes, including changes to fees, revenues, expense updates, and any budget enhancements were due the week before and the week of Thanksgiving. Meetings with the CIP Evaluation Committee occurred in mid-December. By December, staff were conducting analysis and reviewing budget submissions, with departmental budget review meetings held during 2 weeks in January. Finance conducted an initial review of departmental budgets in early January, and prior to the department meetings with the city manager at the end of January. After these meetings, finance staff worked with the city manager's office to model several budget options and develop the budget ordinance for introduction in late February. Actually, it was March 6th. The city manager's proposed budget was published last Friday, March 31st, and the budget will be presented for adoption on May 15th with an effective date of July 1st. Next slide. And finance staff provided a preliminary budget to departments removing prior year one-time expenditures. This is part of the development of the base budgets and accounting for anticipated healthcare cost increases and personnel changes that have occurred to provide a best initial estimate of the current service level costs. Departments were asked to request any funding changes needed to maintain their current service levels, including contractual, utility, and other cost adjustments. For the CIP process, the CIP Evaluation Committee was convened to score the various proposals received across the same 12 metrics as last year, including relationship to priorities, preservation of public safety and health, and equity considerations. Project requesters were given the opportunity to present to the Evaluation Committee and for the committee to ask them questions as part of the scoring process. The scores were used as a factor in determining which projects move forward, with the new projects listed in the CIP having completed the evaluation process this year. As part of the CIP process, finance reviewed policies from local jurisdictions and adjusted the dollar thresholds for CIP consideration to $50,000 for standard CIP projects, $30,000 for information technology related projects, and $5,000 for public art CIP projects. This resulted in 2 projects under consideration being moved to the operating budget. Departments again had the opportunity to request additions and enhancements to current services through the budget enhancement request process. This year, the initial guidance provided asked staff to keep in mind the economic environment we find ourselves in, resulting in fewer enhancement requests than last year. And then finance met with the departments in the first full week of January to review the information provided and refine the enhancement requests prior to meeting with the city manager's office. And at the end of January, departments met with the city manager with decisions on requests conveyed to the respective department directors last month. That wraps up my description of the budget process, and I'll turn it back over to Tanisha.
Thank you, Nate. So the city's accounts are organized into funds or separate pools of money that are dedicated for a specific purpose. The city currently has 7 funds. We used to have 6, but we now have the Opioid Abatement Fund, which is a small fund, but it's a mighty one and has helped already with some impactful programming this year. As shown, the 7 funds here, all funds, including all transfers for the proposed fiscal year 24 budget, is $112 million. Because we transfer money from the general fund to fund, which is the fund listed at the top of this slide, to many of the other funds, and some transfers occur inside of a fund, like what happens with the CIP or the Capital Improvements Fund. Those are called intra-fund transfers. I wanted to show you a slide that strips out the transfers to give you a better idea of proposed spending for each fund. So compared to the $112 million from the previous slide, you can see that FY24 proposed all funds budget is $85 million, with more than 75% of spending being proposed out of the general fund, which is the city's main operating fund. I would also like to emphasize the proposed budget contains no tax increase, which has only been raised once in over 40 years as we continue to enjoy one of the lowest property tax rates in the state of Maryland. The budget is also aligned with community input as well as city priorities. So tonight I plan to focus our brief overview on the three funds, the two major operating funds, General Fund and Stormwater Fund, and then the Capital Improvements Fund. These three combined funds cover about 77 million of the 85 million on the previous slide. Again, complete details can be found in the proposed budget book online for those who want to drill down into details, and everyone is welcome to join us next week for the most anticipated workshop of the year. Okay, so let's begin with an overview of the city's main operating fund, the General Fund. The budget ordinance was introduced at the March 6th Mayor and City Council meeting, as Nate mentioned. These numbers reflect the amounts that were included at introduction. As is the case with every budget process, as we receive additional information, we are able to refine budget numbers as we go along. As numbers change, we will always provide an accounting of the changes and why they were made up to and until the final adoption of the budget in May. The proposed fiscal year 24 budget is a little over $86 million, as mentioned, which represents a 6% increase over the current year's budget. We are proposing to budget the use of about $11 million in reappropriated reserve funds to cover larger than normal transfers of about $15 million to the Capital Improvements Fund and almost $4 million to the Asset Replacement Fund. This additional commitment of a portion of the city's general fund reserve will bolster our ability to fund future capital investments while maintaining a healthy reserve balance. In essence, the reappropriation amount covers planned increased transfer amounts for future capital investment, as well as one-time capital projects and contingency funding. The reappropriation amount is not being used to subsidize our day-to-day operations. I will note that this budget marks the third year of eliminating budgeting the use of fund balance to pay for operating expenses. You may have noticed that the year-over-year increase of 6% tracks pretty closely with our record high inflation that we've experienced recently. This year's budgetary increases are being predominantly driven by increases in wages and benefits, as well as general operating expenses such as fuel, utilities, and contracted services, as Nate mentioned. These are all services that are very sensitive to inflation pressure, and we've tried to work hard with the budget to ensure departments have the resources they need to maintain our core service programs and meet the service delivery levels while continuing to restore city services that were impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, there we go. So this chart, while it looks a lot like the previous two, it shows a comparison of the introduced budget and the proposed budget. There was just one minor change, or at least a net change, as you can see. There were lots of smaller changes that contributed to this overall net change to the proposed budget of $66,440. So that is the difference between the introduced budget and the proposed budget. Again, next week, we'll dive into the significant changes for each department. Moving on to revenues, this chart illustrates the breakdown of revenues we are projecting for the proposed budget. The percentages closely track the trends we see in our major revenue sources, which are real estate taxes and income taxes, shown here as county grants and shared taxes, making up the vast majority of revenue at 42% and 25%. Those two large pie slices on the right bottom part of the slide. The slices get significantly smaller following these two major sources of revenue, but are just as important, including charges for service at 7%, licenses and permits at 5%, shared grants and taxes at 4%, followed by smaller portions of the pie for fines, miscellaneous, and federal grants. At the top middle of the pie is the reappropriation amount, which is 13% this year, for reasons I've already briefly covered. So tune in next week for a more detailed review of our revenue projections. I wanted to show a slide show the impact of removing the reappropriation from the revenue amount, just so that you can see the shift there. So we removed the $11.2 million in reappropriated general fund reserves. You can see that the real estate taxes and income taxes combining for 76% of all revenue. This is what makes up the base of what we call recurring revenue, or revenue that we can reasonably expect on an annual basis. Our approach to budgeting is doing our best to match those recurring revenue with recurring expenses. This is called structural balance, and it is a fiscal sustainability practice that guides our decision-making in the budget process. This pie is showing the proposed expenditure budget by expense category. You will note that personnel costs make up the greatest majority of our spending at 61%, as it should, because we are a people-fueled service and organization. This year, transfers is actually the second largest spending category, influenced by the one-time infusion of cash to the capital improvements and asset replacement funds. Still, in a typical year, this category would be ranked third. This is because while the city has 7 different funds, as was mentioned a few slides ago, most of them receive the majority of their resources from the general fund and do not have a separate source of recurring revenue. We will quickly summarize transfers in a few slides. From pies to donuts, I'm all about food that I can't eat at the moment. Here you can see a breakdown of proposed expenses by department. This chart has removed the transfers so that we can reflect just the overall operating departments. Transfers are typically shown in the non-departmental department, but again, I wanted to show the operating budget in a way that's more of a true operating comparison. Public Works leads in overall proposed expenditures at 28% of the total operating budget, followed by Police and Parks, Recreation, and Culture, which are tied at 18%. Given that personnel is the city's greatest expense, these percentages make sense, given the highest staff counts live in these 3 departments. Of course, they would like me to say that they are the city's top priority and thus the greatest share of the budget. My response would be that, of course, I love all departments all the same. Right now. Nate agrees with me.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so transfers. Just a quick word on transfers that I've referenced several times. Here we can see the makeup of the transfers in relationship to one another. The transfer to the Capital Improvements Fund is typically the largest transfer from the general fund each year, and it is even larger this year by about $10 million. As a debt-free city, we pay for large capital projects by accumulating monies over time. The CIP also has annual projects, such as our annual street maintenance program, which this transfer covers as well. So again, we'll dive into more of this next week. A summary of significant changes. We've mentioned already the budget's increasing by 6% over the current year, which is tracking inflation pretty closely. We'll go into more detail in the future, but I just want to mention that the increase is driven by investment in our people. So it includes a 4% general wage increase for staff, an increase in minimum wage. We've shifted some wage scales as well and incentive programs so that we can remain competitive in this very challenging labor market we find ourselves in. And also some of those contractual and just necessary operating expenses, such as fuel and utilities and supplies and services. We saw incredible increases for things like our custodial services. These are things that we can't do without. And so we have done our best to manage a budget that meets all of those adjustments and changes. We also planned for the return of the biennial city election, which includes an enhanced investment to expand voter access. We'll be creating 2 new voter ballot box locations, which we'll discuss, and a significant investment in public safety technology for our police officers. Okay, just a few more slides and I'll be done. We'll cover summaries to the CIP and Stormwater Fund, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor Ashman, to facilitate the public hearing. So just a quick refresher, the Capital Improvements Program is a 5-year program. We budget for 1 year of spending, but plan for the full 5 years. Overall, there are 13 new projects that were added to the 5-year program for about $10 million. About $800,000 is new spending in the proposed FY24 budget. These 7 new projects make up that $800,000. The project list that you see here. The total $15.8 million CIP. Oh no, sorry, that's not supposed to be said. Next time. So of the 7 new projects, the largest of these is the Russell Avenue Improvement Project, which will begin design in the new fiscal year. This project has already received a $200,000 grant from the state of Maryland, and staff is aggressively pursuing additional outside funding through federal resources. Deputy City Manager Dennis Enslinger will review the CIP in depth at next week's budget workshop. And then last but not least, the Stormwater Fund. We plan to spend $5 million in the Stormwater Fund next year, which is just about what was budgeted in the current year. The proposed budget will maintain operations and support it will maintain operations and support 2 stormwater management capital improvement projects, including the repair of Lake Walker outfall and the Rabbit Road culvert. So next steps, we have some key dates for public input. Public comment is invited on the budget and encouraged. The record will close on Wednesday, April 26, 2023. We can be contacted via email at cityhall@gaithersburgmd.gov, by phone 301-258-6310, by mail at 31 South Summit, Gaithersburg 20877. The work session is next week, and adoption is expected on Monday, May 15th. And I will turn it back over to you, Mayor Ashman.
Thank you, Tanisha. Thank you, Nate. Appreciate the presentation. Do we have any questions or comments before we go to the public? Not seeing any. Okay. Well, this is the time we will invite the public to testify on this item on the budget. Same rules as before, 3 minutes. State your name and address or neighborhood for the record. Do we have anybody who'd like to testify tonight? Not seeing anybody in the room. Let me just check and see. Still see no one on Zoom. Okay. Well, as Tanisha and Nate mentioned, we will be taking sort of a deeper dive into the budget next week at our work session. And I will note that we generally take our testimonies before the big presentation and discussion at our budget work sessions. I'm assuming we're going to do the same thing, but we'll see. But I would just say for anybody who would like to testify, just be ready up front. Make sure you're on time to that meeting, because we generally get right to that, and then we dive into our conversation. And of course, anybody can testify, can submit testimony in writing, and we'll consider it just the same. So, council members, staff recommends that we hold our record open until 5 p.m. on Wednesday, April 26th, 2023. What is the pleasure of the council?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries 3-0, so our record is now open through April 26th. Thank you all very much. And next item on our agenda is from the mayor and city council. We're going to start with Ryan tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sadly, I have to start on a tragic note tonight, acknowledging the mass shooting in the city of Nashville at the Covenant School on March 27th, and the loss of the innocent victims' lives there. And Nashville now joins the virtually unfathomable list of places across our nation experiencing a mass murder event caused by guns. And speaking for myself, I think it's not enough that we send our thoughts and prayers, and that we all, as a community, as a state, as a country, continue to try to find common sense solutions to act to improve the safety of our children, our schools, and our communities in the midst of this scourge of gun violence. But moving to a happier note, let me reflect on a number of events that I and a number of my colleagues were able to attend in the community over the last couple of weeks since our last formal meeting. First, the State of the City event returned triumphantly after 3 years of hiatus as a result of the pandemic on March 30th. And I just want to congratulate all the staff and all the volunteers and community civically engaged activists who attended and who were recognized at that event. Congratulate the award winners as well. And I, in particular, want to salute the mayor. He always does an excellent job at the State of the City, and this year was no exception. It was really nice to have him back at the podium, telling the wonderful stories, the success stories of the City of Gaithersburg over the last couple of years. And it was just a wonderful occasion to celebrate our city and each other and the great work of our staff and volunteers. So thanks to everyone involved. Mayor and I also attended on March 23rd the grand reopening of the Hilton Doubletree Hotel, and we welcomed the investment by the Hilton and its financial investors, and we welcome the participation of the Gaithersburg Germantown Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and other groups that were there to celebrate the occasion. As we understand it, Hilton invested something like $20 million in the refurbishment of the hotel, and are very excited to reopen it now for events and for hotel stays by guests. So check it out. It was really a lovely event, and the hotel looks great. And we're looking forward to a renaissance of travel and service industry and tourism industry, economic development in and around Gaithersburg. On March 27th, I attended the spring conference of the National League of Cities, along with Council Vice President Henderson and Assistant City Manager Tom Lonergan. And it was an opportunity for us to convene with mayors and council members and other municipal officials from all around the country in Washington, D.C. to share ideas, talk about shared challenges and issues, and we covered everything from the housing crisis to the opioid crisis to economic development and workforce development and everything else in between you could think of. We were honored to be able to hear in person from First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, as well as a couple of cabinet members, including the Secretary of Agriculture and the Secretary of HUD. As well as many other great speakers and panelists, and take back here to Gaithersburg some of the ideas and programs and resources that were made available to us at that conference. So it's always a good return on investment for our residents to be able to bring those ideas back, and also share with others around the country what Gaithersburg is doing right. I want to congratulate all of the awardees from our environmental awards reception held earlier this evening at City Hall. You all continue to impress us, as the mayor said, at the reception, and there's just so much creativity, innovation, and passion among members of our community working to make our local environment better. I did want to acknowledge our Environmental Affairs Committee for all of their great work and for helping to organize the event as well. And I would be remiss if I did not point out that I'm wearing my green tie for Green Month. I see that the mayor's wearing his as well. And I would also be remiss if I did not note that I put on this tie this evening at home after composting my dinner and then got into my electric vehicle that had been charging from the solar panels on my roof and drove over here. So I'm trying to do my part, and I want to encourage everybody else to do their part as well.
Let's just go through the rest of the day.
That was just the end of my day. But I also want to reiterate all that has been said about the great Green Month programs that are happening, and I really want folks to take advantage of those. Go to our website, learn about what we have to offer in terms of programs, activities, and displays and information about Green Month here in Gaithersburg, because there's some really good things in there. Congratulations to our friends at the Arts Barn. 20 years is kind of amazing, you know. For some of us, we've been attending programs and events and performances there for a long time, but 20 years is a great milestone, and I want to encourage folks to take advantage of that really gem in our community for performing arts. And then finally, I just wanted to wish everybody good wishes for the different springtime celebrations that folks throughout our community are observing. Happy Easter to those who observe. Ramadan Kareem to those who are observing. Happy Passover. Chag Kasher v'Sameach. Tanisha, you may be comforted to know that I will also not be able to eat pie and donuts for the next couple of weeks, so we'll be in it together. And just in general, want to wish everybody a happy and safe spring. Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. We'll go to Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will associate myself with many of those activities as I attended as well, including the National League of Cities. I also attended a workshop there by the Information Technology and Communications Committee. A lot of focus on the FEC that is putting out or working very hard to put out a map to show where broadband areas are and where they are scarce within the entire United States of America. To give an idea, as funding comes from the federal government, as nonprofits get to work, where those locations are that need broadband service, even to connect. So we see some attempts of folks going out to work with children to do remote learning, and they can't learn remotely because they don't even have connectivity. So they're trying to connect those challenges and differences to make it more valuable, the work that's going forward to connect all children and adults to the internet across the nation. So that on the FEC's website, you can see the broadband work that they're doing in a map that's going to come in the middle of April, I believe the date is. So that's going to be exciting for at least a geek like me. Also, I attended the Benjamin Gaither Center last week, who had a celebration for all folks born in the month of March. So that was pretty exciting. I love going over there. They make me feel young when I hang out over at the Benjamin Gaither Center. So it was quite a celebration for everyone that was born during the month of March. I am here from a jumbo jet fueled plane. I'm sorry that I traveled that way today. It makes me feel like maybe I should have walked in. I'll do better. I'll do better next time. But those are my comments, Mr.
All right, some places just aren't walkable. That's understandable. Rob Wu.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll just ditto everything that's been said. Congratulations to all the folks who won recipients of awards today. Ramadan Mubarak, happy Passover, happy Easter. I saved gas on my commute today because I walked downstairs to the kitchen. That's about it. Happy Green Month.
All right.
Green Month, mic drop.
Okay, I'm echoing everything everybody said. I want to also specifically call out staff for doing a wonderful job with State of the City, including Tanisha, who dove right into it just with everybody. It was great. I thought the event came off very nicely, and I appreciate all the hard work from staff and staff. Basically, my remarks consisted of stories of staff and what they've done. So thanks staff for continuing to be inspiring, and there's just so many stories that are worth telling. People should know. They should know how much that our staff really cares about our residents and our businesses and our stakeholders. I want to also congratulate staff for the environmental awards. I know it's been said, but I want to stress it. It was a very nice event. It was great to get back to doing the environmental awards in person, and so many inspiring stories. And thanks to our Environmental Affairs Committee. I'm pointing over to Jeanette. Appreciate their work very much. And last, I'll just remind everyone that the book festival is coming up on May 20th, and we have over 120 authors listed on our website. There's still one more who hasn't gotten us the information for the website. So she'll be like, she's a terrific author, so she needs to get on the ball here. Just a tremendous lineup. If you go to Gaithersburg.bookfestival.org, which we have the wrong URL on the slide, but I appreciate the effort. Gaithersburgbookfestival.org, and then go to authors and featured authors. You can scroll through all the authors that are going to be appearing. And note we have workshops for children, for teens, for adults, aspiring writers, performances, poetry, food. I guess I'm not sure if there's going to be music this year, but we'll see. There's going to be a lot of stuff for everybody. You're going to enjoy, and it's free to attend and free to park, and it's at Bora Park, and all the information at the website. So hope to see you. Bring your friends and family and neighbors. It's just going to be a big, awesome celebration. And with that, I want to mention that next week, remind everyone, next week we do have the budget work session. It is possible, it hasn't happened in the last few years, but it's possible that we will need to continue the next day. If we can't get through the full budget presentation in our deep dive, then we might go to the next day as well, which would be April 11th. But we know we will be here Monday, April 10th, 7:30 p.m., and you can participate in person or over Zoom, just as you are tonight. And then the next regular meeting of the mayor and council will be on Monday, April 17th. Again, you can participate here or on Zoom. And with that, we'll go to from the city manager.
Just very brief comments this evening, Your Honor. Thank you. I want to thank staff for an incredible State of the City event last week. It was my first in person, or my first ever, actually, for our community, and it was inspiring from the moment we stepped in the reception to be greeted by students from Victor Litz playing wonderfully, beautifully, to the end, which is actually, I need to find a way to coin the end of your speech, Mayor. The cities are my favorite thing, obviously, because I've committed a lifetime and a career to it. But to hear it as cities are the backdrops of people's lives touched me in a really special way. So thank you for those words and for a really great event last week. Thanks.
Thank you. It means a lot to me, too. I felt it as I was writing those words. I really appreciate that. Economic development update, Tom Lonergan-Seeger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Several events actually triggered tonight's economic development update. The end of 2023's first quarter, closing of Lake Forest Mall last Friday, and a preponderance of news stories focusing on the conversion of office buildings to residential uses. To start, let's review how the city's commercial real estate has performed recently. Within the retail sector, 2023's first quarter vacancy rate was 9%. A year earlier, that rate was just a little higher at 9.4. Average rents did improve slightly also from just under $26 per square foot to about $26.50 a square foot. Those stats indicate a move in the right direction. Remember, the first quarter retail numbers do include Lake Forest Mall. If we remove the mall's spaces from the inventory, our vacancy rate does drop from 9% to 1%. Lease rates remain about the same since there were no new leases signed at Lake Forest Mall lately. No activity contributed to that data. The physical redevelopment of the mall won't happen overnight, sorry. But the statistical impact did early this past Saturday. Flex space, the light industrial/office building type, marked a slight increase in vacancy from 4% in the first quarter of 22 to about 4.5% this past quarter. In Gaithersburg, flex tenants include biotech companies. So is demand shrinking? No. Larger spaces and different lease terms mean that empty spaces can take a little longer to lease up. The surprising news in the flex segment was the change in rents from an average overall rate of $12.84 per square foot to over $22 per square foot. This property type appeals to many different tenants, including R&D, warehousing, manufacturing, office, things of that nature, meaning demand will remain good, and we do expect vacancies to increase. Matten's new project on the site of two former office buildings at 700 North Frederick was not included in the first quarter stats. If you did include that, the vacancy rate would rise to about 14%. It brings about 450,000 square feet of new space into our market, and that is space that needed to attract new jobs. Lately, speculation on market conditions for office properties has become a popular subject of news stories. The rapid adoption of remote work has meant that employers don't need as much space. That's true, but the terms of commercial leases require that tenants cannot simply vacate when they downsize. They must pay rent through multiple years or until leases expire, or if they get a sublet. With that warning, the stats show an increase in the vacancy rate for Class A office from 2.5% in the first quarter to 4%. Class B office space dropped from a vacancy rate of 11% to about 10.6%, and the lease rate actually rose slightly. That said, we should expect the salad days of office space to end soon. Demand has shrunk, facility maintenance costs and interest rates have risen. News sources on office to residential conversions are out there, but the actual numbers of such viable projects are statistically insignificant when viewed in the context of our market. Residential is only one of many ways in which buildings and land can be reused. Rather, the real opportunity comes when exploring the many different uses for existing aging office properties, which we have several. Matten's flex buildings, as I mentioned, replaced office space. 200 Professional Drive will become life science space. Reuse of real estate, whether a building or its land, is an ancient story, and Gaithersburg has a track record of adapting to the market while balancing community priorities, and we will continue to do all we can to maintain that reputation.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Interesting use of the salad days metaphor. I think Shakespeare came up with salad day. I think that was originally a Shakespearean phrase. Well done. Okay, Brian Fields from our Public Works Department, talking about the bus shelters.
Yes, good evening. This is a brief follow-up to our discussion from the March 13th work session, where we reviewed some options for our new bus shelters. So the first option we talked about was to maintain the city's current bus shelters. And am I able to pull that up on the screen here?
It's got you got to pull up the PowerPoint.
Open the PowerPoint.
It should be marked. There it is. I'm sorry. Go right with you. Got it. Okay. Okay. So let's see here. Option one is to maintain the city's current bus shelters, as shown in these pictures here. Option two we talked about was to go with what is the current Montgomery County design for bus shelters. These are various pictures of county shelters. The design probably in the top row middle is the one that's closest to what would be the current model. Then what we didn't show you, which is what we would recommend, is what is shown here, which is a county shelter, same model, same type, but with Gaithersburg's color scheme and branding. This is just one rendition of what that could be. This is what we would recommend. It's a better shelter overall. It's slightly better protection from the elements. It has full width sidewalls compared to about a half wall what we have today. It's made of more durable materials. It's all powder coated aluminum for the most part and glass, which makes it easier to clean and maintain. It also provides some good options for both advertising and additional branding. As a reminder, our new bus shelter contract starts May 1st. Our bus shelters would be replaced as the need comes along, or if we identify new locations for bus shelters. So we'd like to go with something similar to what's shown here, but we certainly welcome any guidance or input. That's all I have.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. I like the county shelter. The thing that sticks out to me is that the Gaithersburg colors, this sort of looks like the Gaithersburg flag. It's just this sea of white and like this little logo with
Glass, it's glass. That will be also filled with advertising.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just feel like this is another. This is speaking to me about the Gaithersburg flag again, and it's not supposed to, but it's speaking to me about that. Anyway, go ahead, Brian.
I did not see that angle coming, Mr. Mayor, but that's an interesting one. No, I think that the county shelter with the Gaithersburg branding looks sharp. I think it makes sense, from a utilitarian standpoint for all the reasons we discussed last time and that you mentioned tonight. So I would support the county shelter with the Gaithersburg branding.
Bob Wu?
I agree. I like the color in blue is great. Right, Mr. Mayor?
That's the colorblind joke. Thank you. Lisa?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Brian, the question is, the difference between the full width in the back and then the more narrow, is that a difference in advertising?
It's just the style of it. So if you look carefully, like this, the glass between the two poles here, it goes almost all the way out to the end of the canopy. It's called full width on the side.
Okay.
Just to make it here. So if you look at that and go back to the existing city, you can see here how that pole is barely past the halfway point of the canopy, and it's got this small side glass panel here. So you get a little more protection with the new shelter design. Now what's not shown here is an ad box that would replace likely one side, or you could also do advertising along these back glass panels, but that would look like probably something like this over here. Would be one side would be that advertising box.
Okay.
But there's still a little more shelter and protection from the wind, rain, and elements from the new design.
Okay. All right, I like the design. I think it's really sleek. I like it.
So do we need a motion, or we have
Just
three? I like
guidance,
it.
yeah.
Just
Guidance.
Yeah, guidance. Okay. Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you.
From the city attorney.
I did want to follow up a little bit on the opioid discussion from earlier. You saw in the budget presentation the new opioid abatement fund. You all will recall about this time last year, we decided to participate in the national settlement with the distributors, which included Johnson & Johnson, Janssen, and some others. There is now a second national opioid settlement, which involves a lot of the pharmacies, includes Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, some of those companies. The deadline for the city to participate is coming up very quickly. It's April 18th. So we've scheduled for your next meeting on the 17th a resolution for you all to authorize inclusion in that settlement. We are meeting tomorrow with the Maryland Attorney General to get some additional information. We have a lot of the numbers of the national settlement amounts, but how that will actually trickle down to the municipalities in Maryland. So we look forward to bringing that to you next meeting, but also with the existing funds, we received our first payments in December. There's a staff-created opioid abatement team that has done an outstanding job at coming up with programming, including, I think, several of you, I think, Lisa, you attended some of the events at the schools that were held recently. So we are already putting the money to good use and look forward to getting a little bit more from the national settlements.
Thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome.
Anything? Dennis, come on up.
Just two quick items. One is, as we approach the season for the Frederick J. Felton Neighborhood Matching Grants, I want to let council know and the public know we're making a few minor modifications to try to look at the grants a little bit differently in the equity emphasis areas. So prior to rollout, we'll send you a memo kind of outlining the changes that we're proposing to that program. We're staying within the existing budget. We're just kind of restructuring to give a little bit more emphasis to those equity emphasis areas throughout the city. In addition, I wanted to let you know we are up for a TLC grant, which is a Transportation Land Use Connections Grant. We've applied for these in the past. We're being recommended for a grant related to safe routes to school. That will be before the Metropolitan Transportation Planning Board and then the board itself in April. So hopefully that'll be a grant we secure, but it's being recommended for approval.
You know anybody on that board who could help?
That's funny. Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it. Okay, as I mentioned, join us next week for our budget work session, Monday, April 10th, and if necessary, Tuesday, April 11th. Next regular meeting of the Mayor and Council will be on Monday, April 17th. Happy holidays and celebrations to everybody in this time of year. And until next time, let's do great things, Gaithersburg. We are adjourned.